Yeah, I also wanted to ask you about your own process in creating new solutions. Technologies like artificial intelligence, they provide foundational models that, for example, allow companies or individuals to repurpose or create new solutions. And it's based on foundational principles of an original set of principles and then built out. It seems to me that everybody's an inventor today, but take me through your creative or invent or your innovative innovation process through your company and how you approach innovation. Perhaps when you develop a new application and then build on it. I'm very curious to understand how you've been working all these years.
We have a really good team of people who have experience in a lot of different areas. There's a lot of products that we've worked on that would seem to be completely unrelated, but have application in different areas. So it's just kind of having a broad database, a mental database of how things are done, and figuring out. I mean, if we're inventing something, it needs to be a problem that's worth solving. That's a big one for inventors, that there's actually a market for it and it's a big enough problem. But then the solution part of it, there's such unexpected connections that I don't even know that AI would figure out. I mean, for example, the optical kind of system that we might use for putting light into the brain, where you want kind of a hemispheric, light sending in all directions. The project that we did that was most similar to that was creating a beacon that would be used for boaters that met the U.S. Coast Guard standard of flares, because flares, they create pollution, they burn, they don't, you can only use them once. So we have had another customer who created kind of a flare that was using LEDs and had to send light off in very specific directions and have certain power in every angle. That technology of how did we design a lens to make a flare is actually kind of relevant to putting light into the brain to fight cancer. So it's hard to know how these connections are made. But because our work is consulting, really a lot of the ideas come from outside, and there's somebody else who is coming up with these inventions, and then we're trying to use the little bit that we understand to help them.
Oh, absolutely. Now, one of the constant themes that's looming around the proliferation of technologies that somehow technology will displace workers. There might be some truth to that, but with a few caveats. Can you comment perhaps on how technologies can actually make people better at the things that they do?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different examples of people having that concern and then it not really coming to fruition. One great example is the automated teller machine. People thought that ATMs would put bank tellers out of work, and even though we have millions of ATMs all over the world, there's actually more people working as bank tellers now than there were at the invention of the ATM. As things change, different industries go obsolete and new jobs are created, and you hope that there can be ways to smooth that. My office, is in a place that was an old mill building where, they used to use water power to make clothing. And there's no more, none of those factories here anymore. There used to be a lot in Massachusetts. The best example that I can think of is actually that my great grandfather in Philadelphia had a carriage making factory. I have a photo I could share, but so here's him. He's in the middle with some of his employees. That picture was probably taken about 1916 or something. And obviously, carriage making was a terrible business to be in 1916, and that factory went bankrupt. And with the introduction of the automobile, there really wasn't a need for as many people as you see in that picture employed in carriage making. But was the invention of the automobile good for the world in general, and did it create employment? I mean, it created enormous opportunity for people who making the cars, people making the roads, people making streetlights, the tourism industry. I mean, so many different kinds of things were unlocked by the introduction of the automobile that it wasn't good for my great grandfather that carriage making business was a bad one to be in, but it was great for the world in general. So I think that hopefully as new innovation comes along, it'll unlock new possibilities.
Absolutely. John, these are fascinating insights. Why don't we wrap up with you telling us a little bit about what's happening in your 2024? What can we look forward to and what you see across your industry?
Well, we see what comes across our door. We never quite know. In terms of the Roll Ranger, we just launched in August, so we're hoping to be in more stores and more catalogs and have more customers for that product and solving that little annoyance headache for thousands and tens of thousands and maybe someday millions of people. In the industry, in general, the same things that we've been working on over the past number of years, from machine vision to robotics and medical devices, medical diagnostics, I expect to still be booming. We do see ups and downs and trends in our work over time, but they're not always visible ahead of time. It's usually in hindsight that we see that something that we did was important or part of a bigger trend.
John, thank you so much. Your work is really, really interesting. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be talking with you.
And to our audiences, reach out with comments and suggestions for future projects and for your future projects and topics that you'd like us to discuss. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.